What's up, everybody? Alex here. Welcome back to another video, and welcome to me going to a place where so many other YouTubers have gone before. But I wanted to approach this from maybe a bit of a different angle, and who knows if it'll work, but it may be in hopes of spurring some conversation. I think for me, the doing these types of videos, it's great to show stuff, and I'm all about the show and tell, and it's like collector porn type stuff. Like, we all love that. And then there's the other part of me of like, okay, what about like the genuine music discussion? Maybe outside of just like, oh, that's a great record, or that sort of thing, and that stuff's great too. And so this is a conversation of me diving into a box set that so many people have already unboxed and reviewed, but I want to come in to it from a little bit of a different angle. And of course, I'm talking about the new Black Sabbath Anno Domini 1989 to 1995 box set. Now, before I jump into this, I want to give the biggest shout out and thanks in the world to my friend, your friend, everybody's friend, Steve, over at All the World's a Stage. I mean, this guy, there aren't enough words to explain how great he is and how thankful me, and I'm sure countless others are. This was a case of him showing the box set on his channel and me making a comment that said, yeah, I'd like to get this, but I'm gonna wait until it drops down. For those people who shop on Amazon, like, a lot of times these box sets will drop pretty significantly in price, and I've heard of some people who've gotten some good deals on it. And so I had made that comment of, glad you're loving it, I'm gonna wait for the price to drop down. And he replied back with, hey, it should be at your place in a couple days. And so I think he had some Amazon credits or something that he helped me out with. And so I don't know what to say. Steve, you're just the best, man. Thank you so much, not only for the gifts like this, but also just the ongoing support, and that you don't only give me, but so many people on YouTube. So you're just the best, and thank you from the bottom of my cold heart and damaged liver. All right, now, so let's talk about this. Again, there have been so many people who have done unboxings. Mike over at PC31, the Vinyl Policeman, had did an amazing unboxing. There's countless unboxings from people across the world, literally, about this. But the angle I wanted to come in from this, from talking about this box set and these 4 records in here, are what is my perception of these records from someone who has never listened to them prior to over the last couple weeks. So my quick backstory with not only Black Sabbath, but a ton of these types of bands is that, of course, when I was growing up and getting into music and heavy music, I became pretty familiar with, the prime era, right? Whether at this point it's self-titled through probably Sabotage. I really, really dug into those records and loved them. And then, sort of after Ozzy, whatever, I didn't really care as much. I mean, it wasn't even until Heaven and Hell, that tour that happened, whatever it was, back in the late 2000s, that I even knew Ronnie James Dio was in the band. I mean, those records, the Ronnie James Dio records, I didn't hear until just a few years ago. And so these 4 records here, I had never even heard before. I had simply heard, okay, it's the Tony Martin era. It's a very underrated era. You keep hearing that, like, well, the stuff's really good. It was just a weird time and all that type of stuff. And I think that's probably fair. But I wanted to come from this from the perspective of someone who's never heard this music before. What do I think of it? And to me, the bigger discussion on top of that is, how does our, perception of what we hear, is it based on music that we're listening to, or is it based on music that we expect it to be in comparison to what we are used to and what we grew up on and all that type of stuff? So before we get too philosophical, I will say, and granted I didn't pay for this, but I will say, these are the types of box sets I really enjoy. I mean, the box sets that I get into are when it's an actual catalog, right? It's 4 different albums in here. Here is the cute hype sticker. Love that purple that talks through all the stuff. 4 LP Super Deluxe Edition featuring 3 albums newly remastered. The 2024 Tony Iommi remix of Forbidden, 1989 Headless Cross Tour replica concert book, 40-page book with photos, artwork, and liner notes, and the Headless Cross poster. So some cool stuff, some like, tchotchke type stuff in here. I mean, I'm all in on this type of stuff. This to me, this is cool stuff for me, right? As the collector, the memorabilia person, just outside of the records themselves, I appreciate this type of stuff coming in. The tour poster, okay, cool, whatever. Again, it's a little bit tchotchke-like, but that's okay. I got no problem with that. Along with that, what was that, cross purposes sort of booklet or whatever. Some other things. Let me get these records out here so I can show them and kind of give a little bit of my, oh gosh, apologize here, review. Okay, so first record as part of the box is Headless Cross. Now, for those people who know Black Sabbath and know this era, you know that this is not the first Tony Martin record. The first Tony Martin record was Internal Idol that came out in 1987 after Seventh Star that had Glenn Hughes on it. And so due to some like label type stuff, and I think that has already been reissued a couple different times, this 1989 Headless Cross was the first of this sort of box set released. And here's the thing, listening to this the first time, and then a couple times thereafter, what did I think of it? Well, I really liked it. There were moments I had to continue to convince myself that it was Black Sabbath. Now, Black Sabbath at this point in their career was kind of, Tony Iommi and whatever he surrounded himself with. But, I'm a huge Cozy Powell guy. You throw Cozy Powell on any record, I'm going to be into it. One thing I will totally appreciate with Sabbath is they did absolutely change with the times, right? I mean, they really obviously took off with the doom metal stuff and created that sound and all that good stuff back in 1970. But then when you get to the early 80s, when they bring in, Ronnie James Dio for Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules, that type of stuff, now it's like this picked up, galloping, almost new wave of British heavy metal type of sound, right? Like they're sounding more like an Iron Maiden or some of those classic heavy metal bands at that point in time. Now you fast forward here to the late 90s where, think about it, hair metal is huge. Grunge is about to turn right on the corner. We'll get to that in a second. But at this point in 1989, it is all about MTV. It's all about how people look. I think with the whole glam hair metal thing, what you're also talking about now is it is quote unquote metal that can get on the radio because it's accessible, it has the big melodies, all that type of stuff. By no means, don't get this twisted, am I saying that this sounds like a hair metal album. What I am saying is between this album and Tear, but more this album, you get the sense that they were completely influenced by what was going on around them at the time. Presence of keyboard, I think it's Jeff Nichols on a lot of these, if not all of these records. There's hooks. Tony Martin's singing is, again, he doesn't sound like those types of singers, but he comes from the Dio sort of ilk, but at the same time, I think adds a little bit of that 80s sort of flair to it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I get from this. Headless Cross, great song that sort of kicks it off after the instrumental Gates of Hell. You get Kill in the Spirit World. Again, some of these songs that don't really sound like other Sabbath songs, and you have to convince yourself. In one sense, it's like, is this Sabbath? In the other sense, it's like, well, that's all it could be. They, to me, have always done a great job. I will respect it. So I will say, again, Headless Cross, for someone who's never actually listened to the record before in his entire life, I got great enjoyment out of this. Do I like it at this point as much as the early Sabbath stuff? No. Do I like it as much as Mob Rules, Heaven and Hell? Not quite, but I still really like it, and I would still prefer this over some of the other stuff that came out in the late 70s. Let's jump into the next one. Let's jump into 1990, of course, with Tear. I think same lineup here, or you still got Neil Murray on bass here. Geezer's no longer in the band. Obviously, Ward's no longer there. Sticking again with Tony and Cozy. Again, I'm all in on Cozy. Here we have 1990. Similar in sound to Headless Cross, but moving more into the 90s. Still loved this record. Got a lot of enjoyment out of it. Don't think I liked it as much as Headless Cross, but I'm still putting these neck and neck. Records I got a ton of enjoyment out of. Things I really liked. Now, in the Sabbath sort of history, you would know at this point, they did those 2 records with Tony Martin. Then they would bring in back Ronnie James Dio for the Dehumanizer record, which is obviously not a part of the set because it's not, Tony Martin. But they bring him in for that record. That is another Black Sabbath record I've never listened to in my life. And so now we're going to go to 1994 with Cross Purposes. Important about this, I guess, probably for Sabbath fans, I would say, is the return of Geezer Butler here. Although I don't know, I'm saying that, not really sure if he was on Dehumanizer. Someone help me there. But now we're back. We got Geezer on bass, but unfortunately no Cozy. So I'm sitting here, I was like, could Cozy and Geezer play together? That'd be great, right? It just seems like they're kind of not going to play. It would be great to see that. Now here we're talking again, 1994, and to me, again, changing with the times, that is reflected in the sound. It has this sort of darker, I don't want to say grungier, but you can kind of tell the influence of what was going on in popular music at the time. Stuff like Alice in Chains, Nirvana here, but I mean, when you think about, again, just that sort of melancholy, still heavy types of chords that are going on, I guess, it just feels that they were writing and composing music that was to fit the time, which I appreciate because that's what they did in 1989. That's what they did in 1980. That's what they did in, moving into the 70s, even like the mid 70s when they were doing Sabotage and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I mean, they were doing some proggy stuff on there if you think about it, because they were talking the mid 70s at that point. But to me, still got a lot out of this record. Don't like it as much as Tear and Headless Cross, but still did get a lot out of Cross Purposes. And of course, that takes us to the last one. And truthfully, I think the record I was looking forward to listening to the most, not because I was, let's get this out here, not because I had heard so much good about it, but because I had heard so much bad about it. This is one of those records where this is like I feel like this is thrown in there with like the Queen Hot Space or the music from The Elder from Kiss. Like it gets thrown in there as almost like the novelty sort of wink, wink, oh, that's the trash, Misfit Toy Island of the catalog. And so I was really looking forward to this because, again, I had never heard it before in my entire life. No idea what, Ice-T's like on here. Like, that's all I had heard, right? And so what I will say is this, and this is the one record that got the big remix on it. I thought sonically, this sounded really, really good. And it sounds like that has been echoed by a lot of other people who have done reviews on this set, is that sonically, this sounds superior to what was originally released in 1995. Is this my least favorite of the 4? Yeah. I don't put it that far behind Cross Purposes. I didn't dislike this. I still enjoyed and got enjoyment out of this record. I don't know what I would give it out of a 10. I don't really do that type of stuff. But again, interesting that the things that people really disliked about this record, I'm always wondering, do they dislike it because it's not what they expected? Or as we go into these things a little bit more without any of those preconceived notions or any of that kind of previous baggage, do we still find ourselves do we approach it from a different angle? And I guess, that's kind of my point and the point of the discussion, I guess, for anybody who cares enough to say something about it is, admittedly, I'm a younger, quote unquote, person. I did not grow up with this music, right? I did not attend shows in the 70s. I was not there to experience when the Beatles broke up. I was not there to experience when, people changed sound dramatically overnight. That was not an experience I had. Like so many other people have. But I have this different experience of never hearing these albums before and not coming in with this sort of baggage of, well, that's what it's supposed to be, or that's not my Black Sabbath, or that's not my Deep Purple, or whatever the band is. And for me, it's always interesting because I sit here and think about, I'm jealous that these people grew up during these times, obviously. But at the same time, when I hear this music, even music that came out 30, 40, sometimes 50 years ago that I might not have ever heard, I feel I'm able to listen to it with a clear, less biased way. But I also don't know if that's a good thing. And so that's kind of where my stump is here a little bit on the whole new perspective idea, is that listening to these records for the first time ever, I really liked them. I really, really liked them. Again, do I put them up there with Master of Reality? No. Do I put them up there with Mob Rules? Maybe not, but they're getting there, especially when we talk about Tier and Headless Cross. I thought those were incredibly strong records. I think Cross Purposes is really great too. And Forbidden, I think, is even also a really strong record that is indicative of the time that is going on in music in 1995. So kind of a rant, kind of a ramble. Want to do something a little bit different with this box set. Want to know what you all think and what your all's experiences have been with this set and all that good stuff. Again, huge shout out to Steve. Steve, you're just the man for making this dream come true for this sad sack of shit over here in Columbus, Ohio. And for the rest of you out there, please go love Steve. Send him fun things in the mail or do whatever. And yeah, listen to more Sabbath and all that good stuff. Let me know what you think. Have a great rest of the day, and cheers, everybody. Bye.